I first played Dungeons & Dragons in 2013. I first ran a game as a Dungeon Master in 2016. From then on, I was hooked. Over the next few years, I played 3 campaigns and many short adventures with a whole bunch of friends. I knew I wanted to keep playing D&D for the rest of my life, and I was incredibly adamant about one thing. I did not want to play virtually. And why would I? There's nothing quite like sitting around a table with your friends, eating snacks and enjoying a cool beverage while pretending to fight monsters and be heroes. There's no way to recreate that same magic, to have that same sense of immersion on a screen versus being there in person. Plus, I'm not a tech-savvy person, and I was certain that playing virtually would be either too overwhelming or too hard to concentrate, or both. Sure, there were friends that lived far away that I wanted to play with, but I had people nearby too, and nothing was going to make me play online.
Mysterious new virus.
Coronavirus.
There are fears a rapidly spreading virus has reached Australia.
This is a rapidly emerging situation where there is not a cause for alarm.
Yeah. And then that happened. In April of 2020, the world was shut down, and I thought to myself, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it big then.
If we gonna do it then, we do it big.
If the world is going to be virtual, might as well lean into it. Since starting my role as a dungeon master, I had been thinking about my epic, an adventure that would start at level 1 and then span over years, both in and out of game, and then end at level 20 with a god-tier battle. And while everything around us was crashing down with no sense of certainty of what was next, my friends and I didn't really have an excuse to not commit to something like that. I reached out to people across the country, my favorite individuals to sit at a table with. I told them that I was planning a huge adventure and I wanted them to be a part of it. I was clear about my expectations and how long I expected it to last. I ended up with 7 players. We had our session 0, and before I knew it, we were diving in. And believe it or not, we did it. Most of us, at least. Of those 7 players, 4 made it to the end of the campaign. Our game survived the pandemic, 3 cross-country moves, a divorce between 2 of the players, and me, the dungeon master, having a baby. We played almost weekly for nearly 5 years. We gathered in person 3 times and completed exactly 200 sessions. Along the way, we all grew as both role players and as people. While some of the players had never met prior to our session 0, all of us were now incredibly close. I mean, we finished the campaign just right over there, sobbing together on the floor of my basement as we said goodbye to each of our characters in turn during the epilogue. Well, this series is what I have been promising since I started this channel, a recap of that adventure from beginning to end. As much as I enjoy and love watching Dimension 20 and Critical Role, watching one of those campaigns is a commitment, and sometimes I prefer a shorter recap to an extended adventure, and I'm sure you do too. And I won't be doing it alone either. Each chunk will have one or maybe a few of the players from that campaign helping me talk through it and remember what happened, in a very casual, relaxed setting. And on that subject, we're talking about events that not only happened in our collective imaginations, but events that happened 5 years ago. And it was during the pandemic, so just assume we were all drinking pretty heavily. What I'm saying is our memory might be a little bit foggy at times. We did this campaign for our enjoyment, and now we're going to recap it for yours. I was hoping these videos would be short, sort of punchy spark notes of the campaign, but the first recap we did, we only covered the first 6 sessions, and that took us nearly 40 minutes. So, maybe not as short as I wanted. Of course, these extended retellings will just give you more time to fall in love with all of the characters, PC and NPC alike, just as we did. Now, I'm going to cut them down as much as I can, but I'll still occasionally add interjections for things that we might have forgotten, important world information, lessons I learned as a DM, stuff like that. I might even add a few clips from the sessions if I can find them. And while you can certainly listen to these recaps while you clean or drive or whatnot, for those of you who are actually watching, I'll add art of the characters, art that inspired locations or vibes, small notes about the world, pictures of the map, and so much more. I wanted to make these videos because mostly they're important to me. Yeah, I've written and published 2 books, but I consider this campaign to be the largest and most impressive creative endeavor of my life. I want it to be immortalized in as many ways as I can. When I'm trying to remember what happened to these heroes 15, 20 years from now, I still want to be able to pull up these videos and smile. But also, I want you to know what happened, too. Mark my words, Centering is going to make its way into popular fantasy media one day, and these campaign recaps are going to be important lore. Or maybe you can just enjoy them. Feel like maybe you were there when we rolled the dice and laughed together. Maybe you'll fall in love with the characters that, for so many years, only lived in our minds. Thanks for watching, guys, and please enjoy the Saga of the Storm Slayers. So, real quick, before the recap begins, let me fill you in on just a few small world-building notes. The world of Center Ring is recovering from an event known as the Great Unrest, a series of wars and conflicts, broken treaties, betrayed alliances, countless attempts at peace, and even more backstabbing for power. This period lasted just over 100 years and was mostly comprised of these 4 nations and their respective peoples. After a century of bloodshed, a small group of adventurers was largely responsible for ending the conflicts and brokering a peace deal, resulting in the largest democratic nation in Centering's history, the Golden Alliance. One of the founding adventurers became the leader of this new superpower, and since then, an uneasy peace has been maintained. That was 5 years ago, and the Golden Alliance is still holding together, to everyone's surprise. Our adventure began, however, on the Wandering Prison, the Alliance's most high-security penitentiary for the most dangerous of inmates. Here, amongst murderers, pursuers of genocide, and the war criminals of the Great Unrest's most heinous deeds, there are the 7 prisoners of Cell Block 13.
They had it coming. They had it coming. They had it coming. They had it coming. They had it coming all along.
Each of these 7 know who they are and who they were, but cannot recall any details of the 2 years before their arrival at the Wandering Prison, 7 months ago. They have no recollection of what they did in those 2 years, and certainly no memory of their crime. This obvious connection has put a small amount of trust between themselves and the others, and a desire to break out and learn the truth.
Here we are!
Hello!
I have with me the 4 Storm Slayers that made it to the end. So if you guys would like to, one by one, describe your character as they were at the start of our campaign, in the very, very beginning of, 5 years ago, April of 2020, midst of the coronavirus pandemic. We'll describe what our characters are. I will briefly mention those who are not with us right now, and then we will do a quick recap of our first 6 sessions. Yeah. Evan, why don't you go first?
All right. Hello, I am Evan Rose, and during the Stormslayer saga, I played Zephyr of the Eladrin. He was a very Fey-touched elven warrior, ranger class, horizon walker, friend of many, both animal and people met, very charming, adorable, but also fierce in a fight and good to have on your side.
What was the season you were in when we first met Zephyr?
So Zephyr, being an Eladrin, was touched by the seasons, and normally, rules as written, an Eladrin picks a season, and I had Zephyr change based on his emotions. So spring was very exciting and fun. At the beginning of the session, as is Center Ring elves are known for, memory is very important. And our memories were wiped, so he was wilted in a winter state. Beginning of the campaign.
You know what hair I have written down for you in this note from the very first page of this notebook?
What was
It was
it?
long white hair.
Yeah.
Justin, do you want to describe your character at this very first session?
Very first session, my character's name is Chard. What was that I can't remember what the subclass it was called.
You are Blood Hunter
Blood Hunters. Yeah. Just like think of the Matt Mercer.
Yeah.
It's like one of the not an official subclass, but and he had severe burns, so he looked kind of like a mummy. He had a lot of wrappings that he'd keep himself wrapped up in because he was self-conscious about them. He was quite angry, spoke with a weird accent because his didn't have a lot of lips left, and he really, really hates the undead, like a lot. Being a devout adept of the Temple of Hades, he thought that they needed to stay dead, so does not like any undead or spirits being on the prime material plane.
Thank you, Justin. Tawny, you're up next.
Fun fact about Chard, my first notes note him having black-blue hair. I'm pretty sure we always imagine him as not having any since he was all scarred up, right?
So wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
I also have written down black hair.
Black-blue hair.
Whoa, is this the Mandela effect?
Yeah. Chard was
My character, Audrin, was technically a Triton, but we had arranged that she was half mer, so she was a mermaid with legs. I described her as having, I think, very faint green hair, muscular but small framed, and long, very braided hair that I think I described as iridescent the way the underside of a seashell is. So darkly iridescent. And she had a reverse mermaid tattoo on the inside of her bicep that said, "Hey, sailor."
And Audrin and Zephyr were the only two that shared a cell because we had 7 players, and the map that I had found for the Wandering Prison had 6 cells, so I needed 2 people to share a cell, so it ended up just being Audrin and Zephyr. And your
The start of our bestiehood.
relationship as cellmates and being that closer than the others, did continue throughout the entirety of the campaign. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she was a swashbuckler rogue.
Sean, if you would like to describe your character.
I'd be interested to know exactly how I described him at this point, because now I just sort of have to have an image of how he was in the Wandering campaign. So Anthony Steelweaver, a forge cleric, human plus, deep red hair. Would have been at this point in this prison in the time he was there, maybe a bit grown out and matted a bit, as well as his beard, kind of still that same deep red and bushy, very like deep tanned skin. But more notably are these tattoos that cover kind of the entirety of his body. Very muscular stature, big, kind of thick, muscled hands from being a blacksmith, a tradesman working with his hands all the time, stuff like that. Yeah, that's Anthony.
Also amongst us, we had Ross, who was playing Rollo Lycansbane, a Goliath barbarian, another Sean, playing Barabbas, the tiefling monk, and Micah, playing Fen Shi, an orc monk.
And you guys were prisoners of the Wandering Prison. The
Cell 13.
Cell block
Cell block 13.
Yeah. The Wandering Prison is the most well-guarded, inescapable prison of the newly formed nation of the Golden Alliance. And we started the campaign. You guys, you have been in the Wandering Prison for a number of months. I think it was like 7 months or something that you guys have been there, with no recollection of your crime or any of the 2 years before arriving. And we started the campaign with you guys being allowed into the prison yard. The prison yard being at the center of this column. The rest of the prison is all around you. You do feel the occasional like rise and fall of being on the ocean, and occasionally water seeps in up to about the midway between your ankles and your knees,
Right.
before sort of cascading out again. You guys have been in this prison for a number of months now. And during the middle of this time, this sort of recess, a number of you did some stuff. I know Rolo was part of the distraction, the fight. Riot! Riot!
A prison riot? Please. Hey! Riot!
Impressive.
Classic.
Who else was part of that? Was it
Audron had gotten curious.
Okay.
She tried to climb the wall to see if we could figure out where we were. And whenever she came back down because the guards chewed at her, Rolo said, "Hey, do that again." And she went, "Okay."
Okay.
And then he started the riot and she climbed again.
Yeah. And most of you helped elevate the riot, but Chard did something big. Chard went over to a notable prisoner of the Wandering Prison who was a man in a straitjacket, his arms bound, and he had a gag across his mouth with notable purple spiky hair and silver eyeshadow. Chard, what did you do with that prisoner, who I believe was guarded by 2 guards at the time?
He was straitjacketed.
Yeah, a straitjacket, a guard on either side, gagged. What did Chard do?
Well, I removed the gag from his mouth, and I think he teleported away. So
You did, yeah. You there was a disposal of the guards, and you removed the gag. And I think you said something. I think you were like, "Help with the distraction" or something. And the man said something along the lines of, "I will remember your faces," and teleported away.
yeah,
The prison riot was ultimately successful in allowing any escape opportunity. You guys were put back into cell block 13, but in doing so,
I remember something about Zephyr and Audrin pickpocketing a note from a
Yep,
guard.
yep.
We
Yep.
were gathered to get information about something that was happening next.
Yeah, you guys were told that through pickpocketing your guard, as the 2 of you were being put back in your joined cell together, pickpocketed, found a note that it was basically a memo of the daily activities and what was to be expected. And you guys knew that there was a shipment of new prisoners arriving later that day, so that you guys knew that if you were able to escape, there would be a means of getting away from the Wandering Prison. How did you guys break out of the cells?
So one of my favorite of the whole Storm Slayer
and it was
campaign
session
is
1.
in
Yeah,
session
I
1.
remember this.
It's 2020, and we're trying to do this thing. What we're doing right now, we're gonna like play D&D together in like 5 different cities across the country. How is this gonna work? And
Some of you guys had never met each other.
we didn't even know each other.
It was like I was the center point. I knew each of you, and some of you had met before. Many of you hadn't.
We tried to sign language to each other's characters.
Yeah.
And through like line of sight, you even made sure that who could talk to who.
Yeah.
And we would mute our Zooms and have to just pantomime to each other. And
Because there were guards present.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we couldn't communicate. So we're like, all right. And then like it was almost like a real life performance role of like, how much do they get? And we couldn't check in with each other. We're like, all right, and unmute. That's what you did.
Yeah.
But we managed to
You guys managed to escape.
Rolo
subdue
like
the
got a
guards.
guy up against
Yeah.
the classic prison escape.
I recall Audron shoving an arm through and Hey Sailor overhearing somebody was my first charisma check, and then I think he was within Rolo's reach.
It was Anthony's first spell. It was command. And I don't remember the word that I used. Had the guard unlock the door,
Cool.
unlock the cell door. Yeah.
And you guys subdued the guards. You managed to steal their cloaks so that you had some sort of disguise. stole some weapons. Some of you were disguised, some of you were armed, and that's where we ended up ending session 1. Session 2, we picked up. You guys had the guard uniforms, were sneaking through, and at that point, you guys learned through the grapevine of other guards that the prisoner that Chard had let free was the wizard Soraya, who had been apprehended at the end of the Great Unrest and had committed terrible war crimes.
I have Soraya's name written on the 4th page of this notebook.
Yeah.
Wow.
Love it.
So he had been released. And then when you guys arrived at sort of the central control of the Wandering Prison, the warden was there, Warden Tiberius, and he assumed that you guys were in league with Soraya. He assumed that you guys had intentionally released him,
right,
and that your plan and his release were somehow connected on a larger level than just Chard being like, hey, that guy looks powerful, let's let him go. Now that first encounter with Tiberius was meant to be your first like boss battle. You guys were level 1, but it was 7 of you against a level 3 cleric, Tiberius, and then like 2 other guards, and you guys just wiped the floor with them. Honestly, it might have been over before Tiberius got a turn. I don't really remember.
I do remember there was a net involved.
And
Yeah,
we
there-
left it behind, and it was magical.
There-
And
Yep.
It was an
Would have been the first magic item.
I didn't even remember there being combat here.
anti-magic net.
Oh God, that could have been useful.
Could have been really useful, especially considering the plot that happened afterwards. So after you guys subdued Tiberius and his guards, you learned the horror that was the Wandering Person. Evan and Tawny, do you want to talk about what that was?
Sure. So I think that makes sense. Zephyr being a very nature boy and Audrey being a very aquatically aligned character, we figured out that the Wandering Prison was named that because it was a dragon turtle.
We were on the back of a dragon turtle.
That
Yeah.
was literally built upon this prison. And then worst of all, this poor turtle was being tortured to exist with its like.
Yeah, it was not allowed to die.
Yeah, it just wanted to submerge. It had to remain.
Thus the water flooding the prison.
Yeah.
He would start to submerge, the water would rise up, they'd force him back up, the water would recede.
So Bleeding Heart Zephyr and Mermaid Audrey did not like this, but we were met with our first big consequence choice of flipping the switch and releasing the dragon turtle to freedom, but it drowns every criminal soul in the Wandering Prison.
Hundreds, and not just criminals, but
The
guards
guards.
as well. And you guys felt with conviction that you were there under false pretenses, and you didn't know how many other prisoners were
That was the catch for Audrey.
So-
innocent. Yeah.
So we decided to leave on our own accord and let the Wandering Prison exist, but Audrin and Zephyr made a promise to return. And said we were gonna
I
bring
think both of you at some point made it into the water and attempted to speak with the dragon turtle and
Audrey-
promise some sort of return and release of this torture. But you guys escaped. You left on the boat that had arrived, bringing new prisoners. You brought the warden Tiberius and 1 other guard, a man named Cedric, with you onto the boat as sort of like hostages.
kind of a goofy fella.
And he was a goofy fella. Yeah, Cedric was. And you guys set off. And that was the end of our 7th session. And session 3 was a tough one. We spent some time on that small ship. A ship no larger than would be comfortable for 10 people. And there was some roleplay opportunity. Now, Zephyr and Rolo were the first ones to have some memories return.
Yeah.
You remember what that memory was?
The details no, but something I really liked as a player, starting off this story, you, the DM/storyteller, could give us information.
Yeah.
You were able to feed us these cool moments that we could then use as players for our story. So Rolo and Zephyr are a good example of we came from the same region of Central Maine.
Yeah.
And so that might have been the reason why you chose us first, because we met first in the party.
Yeah.
So our paths crossed, and that was sort of the inception of this heroic group of adventurers, sort of the seeds of it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was
Anthony did something cool, role play. Sean, tell us about that.
Was that the axe?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Anthony, having gotten away from the wandering prison, and having a chance to sort of stretch his magical legs a bit, asked Rolo if he were to have a weapon of his choice, what would he like? To which Rolo immediately responded, a great axe. So Anthony, being a forge cleric, collected from the guards that they had kind of taken care of, like their armor and weapons and stuff, and had all this scrap metal, and sort of placing that into a circle with the some rope and stuff collected from the ship around to keep it contained, doing a sort of magical ritual and creating this great axe for Rolo.
Hell yeah. Let's see what else has.
That's also really cool because
I have a bunch of scrolls from the prison that we apparently took.
not just magically, like
That was like some background information about us arriving.
Oh yeah, share that.
Yeah, so I think Zephyr found these scrolls further back here in my notes. But so looking for information about why we were there, because obviously we've had all of our memories taken.
Notes amongst like the warden sections.
Oh, right.
You guys looked for like details upon your arrival. Yeah, what did you found?
It's very like simple stuff, but basically they're able to piece together. They had stuff about, cell block 13 arrived on Hellbloom 24. 7 prisoners arrived without warning. Upon interrogation, found they had no memories. Arrived with paperwork from the Golden Alliance. Notes about them, they seemed very groggy during the interrogation. Seems as if they were under effects of an unknown drug. So this one is a little vague. It says red blotch with fingerprint. And then crimes against the Alliance. At least that's what's in my notes. I think the point was to be vague, right?
I'm trying to remember exactly what red blotch with fingerprint might have been. Yeah. Other things that happened. You guys, during this mostly roleplay session, got to know Cedric and the Warden Tiberius a little bit better. Both of them, being there against their will, took some time to warm up to you guys. Kind of did. Not in like a, oh, we're friends now way, but kind of like a, we're all in this together kind of way.
I think Antony really drove that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And then
We found some charts to figure out where we were and what day it was.
Yeah.
Ooh, cool.
Noting that at this point, they were duskward of the Phoenix Empire. And that they need to stay away from their current course because continuing where they were going was going to lead them into something called the Everstorm.
And you guys did bypass the Everstorm. You guys got really close to the Everstorm. Close enough that I believe Audrin got into the water and got as close as she could to the Everstorm, if I remember correctly. Tani, how much do you remember about that?
I don't have a note that I did that. I do remember being very tempted. I remember that I was extremely invested in it. My notes simply read that Cedric, our captive sailor, warned us very strongly to avoid the Everstorm.
Yeah, this dark, perpetuous storm, this maelstrom in the middle of the sea that has been going since before recorded history, and you guys just skirted around it to the best of your ability. Now, shortly afterwards, as night was closing in, a rogue storm did show up, and there was a skill challenge of how well you guys could navigate the storm amongst this small ship. And something that young DM Bryland did not expect. This random skill challenge killed one of the party members. Barabbas was struck by some rogue barrels early in the skill challenge and took some damage. And then late in the skill challenge was, by random act of the dice, struck by lightning.
and in doing so took like, I don't know, 18 damage or something. It wasn't a lot as far as lightning is concerned, but as far as a level 1 character who had
It was
already
level two at this point.
level 2
Don't insult us.
Still not enough.
A level 2 character who had already taken damage, he was brought to negative his hit point total and died. And that's
Level 2 is such a dangerous place to be.
That's where
Level 1.
our 3rd session ended. So
Well, that wound up being a super formative moment for Audrin.
Yeah.
It was
So going into our 4th session with the sort of recovering from that, or not even recovering, but like in that moment, and then as the storm was subsiding late at night, finding this rogue island that you guys just sort of stumbled upon. Talk about how that affected your characters in the party, and then Barabbas's funeral, which was seen over by Chard.
Yeah, Audrin was in the position of captaining the ship through that storm, and I've even got notes that she was like thrown overboard, pinned at one point, just sort of rendered useless. And I also have notes that she would warn Barabbas, but that she didn't know him well enough to miss it. But I remember having that feeling of, will she sort of embody this as more of like a fuck it, life's short, YOLO attitude, or will this be heavy? And Audrin never captained another ship until Epilogue.
Yeah.
Audrin never captained another ship until Epilogue. That was sort of where she landed on that. And then as we got more and more flashbacks with Barabbas as the campaign went on, it really weighed on Audrin. It became this sort of defining characteristic of her that she felt responsible for things that she shouldn't have been.
Interesting. I thought the death of Barabbas was kind of wild. How early on in the story it happened. It really gave a weight to how chance could really affect us as characters in a party. So, I know we were in a high magical setting and resurrections existed, but like death was a real thing, you know, and it could happen.
I did promise you guys a certain amount of plot armor once you got to a certain point.
Right. Revivify doesn't come till level 5.
So
it's all permanent till then.
Right.
Yeah, Justin, do you want to talk us through that funeral process and like what it meant to Chard and your process as a player, as honestly the most experienced player at our table?
I don't remember much.
Yeah, I
But
know. Do it for the camera.
I want to hear Justin's recap without his notes.
We all
He has no notes.
Justin.
It was before you were smashed during every session. You got this.
Okay,
But
session one, and also
it was important for Chard because he was like, got to make sure this guy doesn't come back. Because he was very anti-resurrection, like, you're dead. So he wanted to make sure that we did the full Hades-aligned cremation. Nothing's left to bring back. His soul gone. Not allowed to come back.
did burn the body on the beach there. And
That's what I remember it being.
spent and Chard did a number of like blessings of temple.
Make sure the soul moves on. and
My
stays.
note says 2 coins in his mouth. Chard put 2 coins in his mouth and ties a bandage around his head, holding his mouth closed.
Yeah. The fairy keepers pay or whatever.
You got to pay Karen.
Right.
And you guys rested on the beach and woke up to a very elegant ship not far from the coast with a dinghy with a number of people approaching the beach. The ship was later revealed to be the Dawn Chaser, a ship in the fleet of the Phoenix Empire, Antony's home country, which was captained by Admiral Barnaby Snapfizzle. And Snapfizzle was on board the ship. Coming to the shore were a number of crewmen, including the first mate, Crow, a Goliath, and a wizard, a woman by the name of Lenore, an elf, and a representative of the Prime Conclave of Conjury, a student of the High Academy of Arcane Arts, who had come to the island to speak to its only resident, Alton Hamar, who was a former associate of the Prime Conclave, a former professor at the High Academy, who had left after some of his practices and focuses were deemed not welcome. And now, with the evidence and the feeling that he was continuing these less than approved magical practices, Lenore has come to this island to stop that. Now, Lenore is kind of like, I'm here to take care of this problem. Don't know what you guys are doing there. Crow was very interested in what you guys were doing there. Talked to Audrin for a little bit. Tony, what do you remember of that conversation?
I don't, which is interesting.
And that's fine. We can just sort of glaze over it.
Questions Audrin is all I have.
Yeah, I have interrogation, but it's in growth, so I don't know what that means.
I remember an important moment during this happening. And I don't have it written down, but I remember this. So the ship arriving, the dinghy arriving, all of this interaction is happening on shore. At this point, Antony is with Tiberius and Cedric in the jungle a little bit where their sort of camp was.
Oh, right.
And they're sitting there, and Antony's having a conversation of like, look, like, we know where we're at between you and I, and there's these people. Are we going to be cool? Like, can I trust you?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I remember that,
And
yeah.
he cuts Tiberius's bonds.
Yeah.
In which Tiberius was like accepting of the situation. And he's like, hey, we're in this together right now.
Yeah, it went from like prisoner situation to like, we're like unlikely allies just for now.
Cool. The two groups decided to work together and move deeper into the island, searching for the location of Alton Hamar. In order to do so, as you guys were traveling through the desert, there was the feeling of being watched. One of the crewmates of the ship from the Phoenix Empire disappeared. You guys knocked over a tree to get past a fence. A large fence. We're like, oh, if we move this tree, cut this tree down, it will destroy the fence, we can cross the tree to get over to the tower at the center of the island. Entering the tower, making your way up to the very top, to the parapet, to the pinnacle. To the pinnacle.
Canopy.
To the pinnacle.
Yeah, you know.
Top, you discovered the study of Alton Hamar, a older halfling fellow, very excited about some of his work and the fossils that he had discovered and the things that were possible, the things that he could do. He could introduce species that had been extinct for who knows how long, and he could do things. He could open an amusement park on this island, and he's explaining all of these things. And as he is doing so, Justin, what did Chard do as Alton Hamar was just enthusiastically discussing all of his ideas?
Well, a lot of his ideas included undead and necromancy.
Yeah.
The big no. So Chard stabs him. I was going to try to kill him.
And Chard took offense to that.
Yeah. Did not like
Chard took that personally.
Tower. So Alton Hamar is back and put a sword through it. Yep.
Yeah.
Which was where we ended session 4.
Can I say, like, it was in that scene that we collectively realized that you were doing a Jurassic Park reference?
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, like, it was, like, because you would drop this information. So, like, the fence you mentioned, and why we dropped a tree, why we didn't climb it, it had, like, necromantic magic that would damage us, because it was akin to an electric fence.
Yep.
Like, so we didn't really get it until we finally met this character, and we were like, oh, this is Jurassic Park, and that was really fun.
Short, halfling, white beard, white hair. He spared
enigmatic.
The little glasses.
Spare no expense.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
We started session 5 with you guys fighting Alton Hamar on the top of his tower, which was an incredibly dangerous place to fight a wizard. There was a guard of Lenore who was thrown off of the tower by some pterodactyls that came in. Antony on the lower level, what happened to you?
Well, you know, he's trying to
initially happened to you, and
he's
then
trying
we'll
to
talk about steps that were made.
Well, I wrote in really big letters, Anthony almost died. Because he was attacked by an animated carpet.
He was wrapped up by a rug. Zephyr was swallowed by a chest mimic, I think. Audrin had a very clever idea of how to get Anthony out of the rug, and
Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, why don't you tell it, Tawny? What did Audrin do?
While panicking, she thought, I'll set the mimics on fire, then I'll let go.
A good idea.
So working with what little weaponry she has, because we're only working with gear that we stole on our way off of the float,
Yeah.
She takes the weapon that she has, lights an arrow on fire, and starts firing at the mimics.
So then Anthony is
As a dramatic little hissy fit.
Anthony is fully smothered by a rug that is also on fire.
I just remember thinking when you did that, I'm like, no, I'm inside of there. Dunk, 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 dunk.
I didn't operate well under pressure. I was panicking and immediately realized that it was, a terrible move, but my character had already done it. What do you want from me?
It's like Tawny's second time playing D&D. Well, it was
my only campaign.
It was session 5, so.
I remember this was the first time Anthony was upset with Audrin. You know what it was? I think he was unconscious, and you shot him with the arrow and took away death saves or something.
I could have very easily missed that he was unconscious.
I think that's what it was.
That could have very well been it, and I did not realize that he was.
And
that very well could have been it.
That's why the big words Anthony almost died are in here. I think it was because he was unconscious and took damage. It was very sketchy situation. We almost lost two characters so early on.
Almost
Being a keyword. You know what happens in the next session?
I remember how anxious I was though, because I was like, fuck, this player's so mad at me. The character's not, but this fucking player is so mad at you. Were so mad. You were
Anthony
already
was
so
upset.
attached.
Lenore got the kill on Alton Hamar.
That's thematic.
Yeah.
She was there to take care of it.
You guys spent some time looting Alton Hamar's tower in the middle of Jurassic Park, essentially. Justin, as charge, found and hid on his person a black leather-bound book with 3 clasps, no unlocking mechanism. And
A surprise clue for later.
Rollo found a longsword with a light purple crystal that set into the hilt, and upon grabbing it, he heard in his head the words, "It feels good to be held by strong hands again." You guys took a short rest, you identified the other objects that you found, and then you left the tower to make your way back through Jurassic Park, now that the fence had been rendered useless. During the way back, you encountered some velociraptors. Zephyr took care of those with the pipes of haunting that he found inside Alton Hamar's tower.
Those were the pipes. Those pipes lasted until session 200.
You guys successfully snuck past a Tyrannosaurus Rex, and we ended the session with you guys on shore, boarding the dinghy to return to the Dawn Chaser. And those are our first 5 sessions. All right, 5 down, 195 to go.